we're just in a world where we take our 30 years of expertise in this industry and we partner that with AI. We know how to build software products. And we just don't think that we should now, that we live in a world where we have to accept that things are just about okay, or they're nearly good enough. We've seen that that's not true. And we can bring that to more businesses.
Right. Stephen and Kevin, thank you very much for joining me today. Good to see you. I'm excited to get into this topic of bespoke SaaS. And if I can just throw out the first question, which is, who are we speaking to here, and who do we think this conversation is going to be helpful for?
So we're speaking to business owners that have got some sort of SaaS that runs part of their business. And that could be anything from HubSpot to PhotoShelter to Salesforce, you name it, any of the many different SaaS products that might be in use. And they're maybe not getting the best results from it. So it's not working as smoothly as it could for their business. Their business processes are maybe having to be adapted to work with the software rather than the software being adapted to work for them. And this is about putting in place a system with your business into your business that works just so much better.
I love it. Okay, so let's unpack those challenges in a bit more detail, because I think the interesting thing about this conversation is that this is the reality for 99% of companies out there, and has been the reality for a really long period of time, is that
yes,
unless you're a huge organization, you're going to go out to market and you're going to buy off the shelf software to do whatever you want it to do. So can we talk about that? What are the challenges that leads to? And maybe we can be as specific as possible about, examples.
Yeah, I think you're right to say that. I think if you think about sort of traditional SaaS software, it's something that was built for 1,000 companies. It's not something that was just built specifically for theirs. So it's always going to nearly fit. It'll do a bit of the job, but often just not parts of the job that kind of matter the most. It becomes quite frustrating over time. And I think early on, when people get these types of software, they start to think, well, I wonder if it can do this, or I wonder if it can do that. And they have this wish list. They have this idea of things that they would like it to do, but slowly they realize that wish list never actually ships. They ask, it goes in a queue, and if 9 out of 10 customers are not actually asking for that, then it's never going to appear. And I think that's a real challenge, because that's when you start to think, okay, I kind of have to accept a workaround here. I have to add other things in to fit this software into our sort of our day-to-day in the business.
I can give you a particular example of that. We were talking to a customer recently who has a system for managing photos. And there are photos of locations. It's to do with a booking type service that they offer. And they need to curate some of those photos and send them out to specific customers. And sometimes they get the job, and sometimes a customer takes the curation, which has actually taken this agency a lot of time to build and put together, and then does a reverse Google image search to find where that image exists, and then find somebody else to do the job for a lot less. So in this example, the SaaS customer or the provider of the SaaS isn't going to do anything about that. But with what we're talking about with Bespoke SaaS, we can just provide a little mobile app that fits in next to that platform. And that mobile app can have a feature in it that blocks screen capture. So the customer has a better experience because they've got an app that they can use directly to communicate with the client and has all of their photos in it neatly. And the client gets a better experience because their IP isn't getting lifted. So it's things like that. And that's never going to be a feature that's on the list for this huge photo management platform.
Yeah. I think when that kind of thing happens, I think like workarounds over time, they just actually become the process, and people just kind of start to accept that that's just how it is. And as Kevin says, it doesn't have to be that way. There's other in the world that we live in now. There's other ways to achieve that. There's a much better way of doing things.
I love it. And I guess one other big factor that we haven't touched on yet is that, in almost every case with software, you're paying for the whole software, and then you're maybe using 10, 20, 30, like at most 50% of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There are people that are using 10% of it, and 10, 20, 30% is quite typical. And that's the nature of how these systems are built. They're built with the sort of person who's gone, well, that'll be a good feature for this set of companies, that'll be a good feature for this set of companies. You end up with this vast, sprawling system. So not only are you paying for functionality that you don't need, but actually by having all that functionality, it tends to make the system more complex. So it's hard for your team to find everything that they're looking for. It's hard to create the workflows that you want to. And it just feels like this template that doesn't quite fit with features where you're never quite sure which ones you're supposed to be using. And ultimately, that's not a very good solution.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about bespoke SaaS. What do we mean by this term?
Yeah, so I guess if you go back and we think about normal SaaS, what I said before, it's built for 1,000 customers and everyone has to bend in to fit it. The alternative is you still have a SaaS product, you still have the product that you do your whatever you do within your current SaaS products and more, but it's built for one customer. It's just built for the one business that requires it. It has the features that they need. It works the way that they need it to work. And there's no more kind of bending to fit in. It's built for exactly how you need it. And I think it also, going back to what we talked about before, if you've got sort of 9 out of 10 customers asking for something and it just doesn't make it in, well, in this case, bespoke SaaS, it just grows with you. If you need something, it's yours. This product is built for one person or one company and one company alone.
And I think it's worth also saying that it's not a case of us building a bespoke platform for you, handing it over, and then it's just, that's it, you're done. Because that's going to be brilliant the day that we hand it over, and then it's going to gradually drift as your business changes and evolves. The whole idea of bespoke SaaS is that we stay alongside you. So you make a feature request, it goes into our team, we have a look at it, and then we have very efficient processes that get it back to you very quickly. Sometimes we can get those feature requests back to you within days.
Yeah.
Right. And so it evolves with you as your business evolves.
Exactly.
Which is never going to be possible with HubSpot, for example.
Yeah,
no.
But is possible with bespoke SaaS. Okay, really interesting. So obviously you guys have been doing software development now for a long time. What has changed to enable this to be possible? Obviously AI is the big elephant in the room here, but perhaps you could explain how this is now possible, obviously based on all your years of experience.
Yeah, so I mean, AI is a complete game changer for this one, because it's taken the cost of actually building software products way, way down. And so what matters now when you're building something with AI is, do you understand how to structure it well? Can you make it modular? Do you know how to make it secure? Do you know how to make it safe? Can you deliver a great user experience? But the actual process of writing the code and delivering the software is largely something that's done by AI under the hood. So it's possible to make changes to software very, very quickly if you know what you're doing. It's equally possible if you don't know what you're doing to create something that you just can't modify, or something that loses your data, or something that's insecure, or has any range of different issues. So we've got 29 years of experience in the software industry, and we understand how to build safe, secure, reliable systems. We've done it for businesses small and large for all of those years. And so it's about taking that knowledge and experience and turning it into something that lets this piece of software essentially evolve with your business. So you're getting all of the benefits that this new AI revolution is bringing, but you don't have to be technical. You don't have to understand anything about how any of these things work. You know that there's a company that's sitting behind it, that's safe, that's reliable, and that will be with you as a partner for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And the build there builds become weeks rather than the year of what people maybe kind of thought about these things previously. It's just, so long as it's done with the capability behind it, the right judgment, the right team behind it, you can just build things with AI so much faster. And that's how we're able to look at building bespoke SaaS, one SaaS per business. It's really, it's just an incredible thing that we no longer have to accept the fact that there's one tool that tries to fit everybody. In fact, we can just do one tool for one company, and that just wasn't possible previously.
I think it's a tremendous opportunity right now if you're a business owner, because it means that rather than having these slightly clunky, poorly stitched together systems, you can get something that's amazing for your business, that just really holds everything together, that fits perfectly with all of your processes, and then evolves as you evolve. So all of those benefits that people keep talking about with AI, that's what we're trying to bring you. It's what we are bringing you. with Bespoke SaaS.
Okay, amazing. So I'm definitely sold now on this idea of Bespoke SaaS, a custom-built platform for my business. How do I go from where I am now, which is multiple different systems, only using a fraction of them, et cetera, to a place where I have this Bespoke SaaS? What does the process look like?
Well, I think the first step, and it's really important, is to take a really good inventory of what you've got. So what systems do I have? What systems are people using? What parts of the software are people using? What parts of the software are people not using? And then think about whether you like the way that those systems are working or whether they're fitting well with your workflows. Be willing to dream a little bit and think about the things that you would actually like and the ways that you would prefer the systems to talk to each other and how they could work to improve your business processes. When you're doing that, you probably want to look at things like how much staff time is going into a given process, what would be the financial impact, therefore, of having that process automated, what's the benefit of making those changes across the team as a whole. So you need to have a really, really good picture of all of that. And from there, you want to find a really experienced developer who can take all of that information and who can work out how to build yourself a custom SaaS, essentially. And it's really important when you're doing that development process to think about all of the things that make that work for a business. You can't just kind of vibe code something without that experience. So work with a developer who is going to do things like make the system really modular so that it's possible to expand and change in future. That's one of the limitations of vibe code apps. They're often easy to make the very first time, but then you can't change them very easily. So it has to be modular because it's going to live and grow with your business over the years. It has to be secure. So, where are you hosting the data? Who's hosting the data? Do you have multi-factor authentication in place? How is all that kind of process going to work? And how do you know that your key customer data is actually being held in a safe way? Then you need to make sure that you've got things like a backup policy and an IT policy in place. So if the system goes down, you've got to have somebody that's going to cover that and make sure that the system, there's somebody there to bring the system back up and that you've got rolling backups and all of that kind of stuff. And from that, you then build out a full architecture of the system. Usually you're architecting the cloud component and then all of the client components separately, all very carefully modularized. And from there, you can then go out and build your new system. And you also want to build a way of accepting feedback from your team so that they've got maybe a dashboard or something that just shows them the requests that people are making to modify the software. And then it's a case of deploying the software, testing it with the team, and then your developer goes on after that, updating and making sure that the system is fully up to date afterwards. And that is what will give you the very best technical outcome in your business, that amazing bespoke feeling of software that's really been designed for you and that saves you all of that time and money and frustration and effort and all of the good things that come from this wave of AI.
I love it. Amazing. And again, I don't know if you have these off the top of your head, but I'd love to hear some examples of this in practice as well. I know we've touched on a couple in the call today, in the conversation today, but it would be good to know what people are doing, but also I'd be quite interested in, for example, how much they're saving per year in software costs. Or so if you have any of that information, it'd be good to hear it.
Yeah, so one example was a business. They've got information in multiple different systems and they're trying to produce reports for accounting. And because all of the information isn't in the same place, none of the tools are able to actually give them that report. So it involves a manual process every month to bring in all of that data, put it together, compile it into a spreadsheet and produce that report. You've got kind of two costs there. You've got the day that it takes to build that report manually, which is obviously team time that can be automated. But then you have the fact that if things get busy and somebody doesn't have a chance to do it, then suddenly your report doesn't get built that month, and then you have a lag in your reporting. And if the reports aren't coming in flexibly and when they're supposed to, then you might miss something that's gone wrong in the business or somewhere where there's an opportunity to grow. So there's a bigger cost associated with that. Another example is people who are coordinating people to work on film sets, and they have to produce these fairly complex to-do lists for each individual person to make sure that they're in the right place and at the right time and that everything's lined up. And again, that can be a really tedious manual process to produce dozens of these, send them out to everybody, and then make sure that you're updating those lists every time there's even just a tiny change across all of the people. So if you automate that process, then you're saving both the time that it takes, which can be, in this particular example, it was actually days, a month that's getting spent on this process. So you're automating away that time, but you're also giving a better experience. You're making sure that people have live information when they're actually doing the job, which cuts the overall expenditure on doing the actual activity itself.
Yeah, so another example is we've been working with the logistics company, and this company was using a large system, but on sort of speaking to them, really they were using 10 to 20% of it, and even that 10 to 20% wasn't actually doing it the way that they wanted it to run within their business. So what we've done there is we've kind of taken away the bloat of that system, and we've recreated it as their own software, which now just does the parts that they need to do, and that's saving them tens of thousands a year. And yeah, they're much happier with the result.
Really interesting. Okay, so what I'm hearing is I'm going to get a custom software, custom SaaS that I can run my business on, which is perfectly tailored to what I do and will evolve with me over time. It's probably going to save on my current software costs because software is quite expensive and I'm not using, the majority of the software that I'm paying for. This might be a difficult question to answer, but what's the catch?
I genuinely don't think there is one. I think if you asked that question 3 years ago, then it's a different answer.
Totally different world 3 years ago. Yeah,
we're just in a world where we take our 30 years of expertise in this industry and we partner that with AI. We know how to build software products, and we just don't think that we should now that we live in a world where we have to accept that things are just about okay or they're nearly good enough. We've seen that that's not true. And we can bring that to more businesses.
One catch to be aware of is that there is a minimum spend. We are looking for businesses that are spending at least £1,000 a month on a SaaS platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is most companies.
Most companies, but
these days.
It is worth mentioning that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. What do you think the first thing is that, people listening to this, they might be interested, but what's the first thing that people should do? Is it to maybe take an what else would we say, itinerary? That's the wrong word. Have a look at what they're currently spending on software. Yeah.
Take stock of what exists, what they're spending. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's two parts to that. Is they take a look at everything you're spending, what it's costing you, but then start to look and talk to the people that are using it on a daily basis. Find out where the workarounds are. Find out how long that's taking them. Find out the countless amount of spreadsheets that are there to kind of make that system squeeze in, and look at what that's the extra time that's costing, and then multiply that by how much that person costs. Because there's two different costs here. There's the cost of the software and there's the cost of the software from a payroll perspective. And I think people will be quite shocked about that, because there's so much that, again, as businesses, we've accepted over the years. We just need these spreadsheets and we just need to do it this way, and we just have to accept it. And I think there's a real cost there as well. So I think definitely sitting down and looking at both those things. And then I think it's let's have a conversation. Let's talk about your software. I think that really are the two or three things that people should be looking at doing next.
Very clear. I love it.